All right. So listen to this very, very carefully. What we are going to talk about is another very important concepts around hydrographs. So basically, so far we have learned that if you give me any d hour unit hydrograph, I can easily calculate any d hour DRH. That is from unit hydrograph, I can quickly go to any other DRH of storm. That is 5 centimeter storm, 6 centimeter storm, even complex storm. I already solved an example in the last video, that is video 6.3, right? Everybody up to that page should be clear. However, we are dealing with engineering hydrology. We are going to encounter some challenges in field. That is, you know that once I give you a hydrograph and the unit hydrograph, you don't even have to go to field to look into the measurements at gauges, because from a unit hydrograph you can predict that if this is the precipitation hydrograph, this is the storm that we are going to get. If you think from practical purpose, this makes your life much easier, because going to field is always challenging. Going to rivers during flood time is always challenging. So you can always predict the flood at the comfort of your computer in realistic world, right? That is why we are designing hydrographs. But the problem is something else that we encounter in the field. You have the information about d hour unit hydrograph. That means if a storm happened for 3 hours, you know the ordinates of your unit hydrograph. There is no problem at all. But on site, your hydrograph or your storm is going to change its duration. It may be of 3 hours, it may be of 6 hours, it may be of 9 hours, it may be of 1 hour, and its magnitude will also change. So far you have learned how to translate a given unit hydrograph into another DRH of any other magnitude. But if you notice, in all the questions we kept duration of storm same. That is, if 3 hour storm was given, you had information about 3 hour unit hydrograph. If 3 hour unit hydrograph was given, question was asked about 3 hour storm. So there was no trick involved. But important question arises that if I have a 3 hour unit hydrograph, how I can derive 9 hour unit hydrograph? Or if I have 3 hour unit hydrograph, how I can derive 5 hour unit hydrograph? And the definition of hydrograph still remains the same. That is 1 centimeter of rainfall or a direct rainfall after accounting for all the losses happening over 3 hours of period. What is the intensity of that particular precipitation event? That intensity is going to be 1 centimeter per 3 hours. In second case, intensity is going to be 1 by 9 centimeter per hour. And in third case, intensity is going to be 1 by 5 centimeter per hour. Is it clear? 1 centimeter happening over certain period of time. So today we are going to learn about converting any D hour unit hydrograph to any T hour unit hydrograph. Right? So for example, if this D, we can write that this T is M times D. Now there are only two possibilities, that this M can be integer or this M can be fraction, and we are operating in real world only. There is no third possibility, right? So integer means that I know this 3 hour unit hydrograph. I am interested in a 9 hour unit hydrograph, then it clearly becomes that my M has to be 3 integer. On the other hand, I know my D to be 3 hour unit hydrograph. I want T to be 5 hour unit hydrograph. So if I write this 5 equal to M times 3, it quickly implies that M is some fraction. This is also clear, right? So there are two cases when one is integer and another is fraction. Dealing with integer is going to be easier. Dealing with fraction is going to require a special tool called as S-curves. And we will talk about S-curve method in our next video. But today our focus is to solve this problem, that how to deal with integer kind of hydrographs. So it is very, very simple. That is going from 3 hour to 9 hour, 12 hour, 18 hour, 15 hour, 27 hour is all going into integers form, right? So that is going to be easier, and let us see that how we do that. So let us draw what we know. It is given to us that we know a hydrograph, and I'm going to give this example using 3-hour unit hydrograph. So we know that this is resulting from a precipitation of depth of 1 centimeter happening over 3-hour period. Is that right? I am interested in 9-hour unit hydrograph. So what I will do, I will lag this. I will say that if I am interested in 9-hour unit hydrograph, that means precipitation should happen over 9 hours. That's what it means by definition. So one thing is for sure is that I will take this block and I will paste it 3 times. One time here, another time here. Does it make sense? What is the duration of precipitation now? 9 hours. I have not lagged my hydrograph yet. So what I will do, that this hydrograph was for this event, which started from here and went up to here. For the second event, assuming the assumption of time invariance, I will lag this hydrograph, that say that, okay, the same hydrograph should now be shifted. By how many hours? By 3 hours, because that precipitation started after 3 hours. So what I will do, I will just take this and extend it backwards, so that these two are identical curves. Make sense? What I will do, again, I have accounted for this block. This block has been accounted. This has been accounted. I'm left with the third one. So I will again do the same thing, that is copy it, paste it, and making full use of technology, I have obtained the 3 hydrographs, each lagged by 3 hours. This happened because of the because of the assumption of time invariance, right? And this time invariance means that does not matter when that 3 hours of precipitation happens, my form or shape of hydrograph is not going to change. Is it true? No, that is why we called it as an assumption. Had this been true, we would not have called it an assumption, right? Why we are making this assumption? We want to make our lives easier. We want to get the approximate form, because if we do not have this assumption of time invariance, then we have to get a new hydrograph every time, which is not idealistic when we are talking from engineering perspective. Now what we will do, apply the first assumption. Now we will apply the principle of linear superposition. That means if we have 3 hydrographs, we can always add them linearly. There was a second assumption that we made. Remember the 2 assumptions. So what I will say here is that we will add it and we will get a new hydrograph just by adding all these ordinates. One, so up to here nothing will change. Here these 2 would be counted for, and again here 2 would be counted for. Here all 3 will keep on happening. So you can see that addition is happening. I mean that whatever is the sum of all the ordinates up to that point, that is reflected here in sum. Now this becomes a DRH for 9 hours of precipitation, right? What is the total depth of precipitation now? This is DRH for 9 hours and what depth?
So 1.
1 or 3?
So 1. Because
Check again. This is 1 plus 1 plus 1. First 3 hours, we got 1 centimeter of precipitation. In 3 to 6 hours, we got another 1 centimeter of precipitation. In 6 to 9, we got another 1 centimeter of precipitation. Over 9 hours, how much water we collected?
yeah.
3 centimeters,
Yes, sir. Cumulative 3.
not 1 centimeter. So this is for 3 centimeters because we lagged it 3 times, added the same block of precipitation again and again. Does it make sense? So this becomes a DRH because we are not talking about abstractions or infiltration or evaporation. What we should do to make this DRH into unit hydrograph of 9 hours?
Divide the ordinates by 3.
Divide the ordinates by 3. So if I divide this, all these things by 3. So if this is my curve 1, this is 1 divided by 3. This becomes my 9-hour unit hydrograph. Does it make sense? Easy, eh? This is called as method of superposition to go from any d hour to any t hour as long as t is some integer multiplied by initial d. So if it works for 3 to 9, you can imagine 3 to 14, 3 to 12, you can go by adding one more block. Then instead of dividing by 3, divide by 4. How many additions you are doing here, you are going to deal with that. Clear so far? So good so far? Should we move ahead? The main challenge arises when this m happens to be fraction. And there we are going to use the second method called as an S-curve method. This S-curve method takes little bit time to digest. So I will introduce the concept of S-curve. I will let you think about it for half a day and then I will post the next recording. But listen to this very carefully and think using common sense and your mathematical senses as we go forward. Let us say, yes, please.
Why don't we use the same method when m is a fraction? Like we can divide it in times then basically. Like if we assume that we have the unit hydrograph for 3 hours and we need to find out for, let's suppose, 4.5 hours. Like then after that we'll have some even at 4.5 hours we'll have the precipitation value, like how much would is the precipitation.
No,
Or
because the response of your watershed to a 3-hour precipitation would be different from for 1.5 hour precipitation. That is the entire problem.
like in what sense? I didn't get your
So,
point.
for example, you have a watershed, right? Precipitation happens for 3 hours,
Hmm.
and you know the response in form of unit hydrograph. So far, so good.
Yes.
Let us say that now instead of 3 hours, that precipitation is happening only for 1 hour.
Hmm.
You don't know which parts of watershed would be contributing towards generation of runoff. Your variable area, the concept that we have talked, that when precipitation happens, different areas contribute towards generation of stream flow at different points of time.
Yes, yes.
We have no idea that how our watershed is going to respond to 1.5 hours of precipitation event.
Hmm. Yes, yes, yes. Hmm.
That is the problem, and that is why we have to. That is why it is counterintuitive that why it takes so much effort to go from 1 hour to another hour. But the problem here is that watershed responds differently to different duration of precipitation. As far as magnitude is concerned, it is about scaling the peak up or down. Does it make sense? So hydrograph is, remember when I talked in the first lecture, I said that the hydrology is all about deciding that function sigma. where you have some input and you are expecting some output. And this sigma is sometimes easy to decode, sometimes hard to decode. This hydrograph is that sigma. That precipitation happens, how my output is going to look like. And this sigma is function of time. That creates all the problem. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So now here is a trick question for you. If I have some hydrographs, right? Let us say that this is a 3-hour unit hydrograph. If I keep on lagging this 3-hour unit hydrograph by 3 hours again, by 3 hours again, by 3 hours again, that means the difference between the starting point to next starting point is 3 hours. That's what lagging by 3 hours mean. And I am lagging it by the same duration as of my unit hydrograph. Make sense? I also lag this, so this difference is going to be 3 hours. If I do this infinite times, can you tell me how the resultant curve is going to look like?
Sir, it would be just x-axis. Means the curve would be very diminished.
No, but my question is I have to add all these now.
Sir, curve would be exponentially increasing. There would be no peak.
Okay, so first option is this is, thank you Yashi for giving me question for next quiz. So this would be exponential. Okay, what else? Option B. We need 4 options or sometimes even 2. If you are lazy, just 2 options would work. As we did in last quiz.
Sir, it will increase and then follow the same pattern.
What do you mean by same pattern? I mean, you're talking about curves. You know that curves are either monotonically increasing and then decreasing. So let's talk in language of mathematics. Because it has to be curve, right? You are adding some, so you can assume that this is a nice parabola, right? You are adding infinite parabolas all lagged by certain hours. How the resulting curve is going to look like, that is my question. 220.
But it also depends on the superposition at some point. So let us say 4 hours. The
Hurry your
value will be like not the peak, but it can be greater. So it can be greater than or less than the peak.
Okay, that's fine. But my question, it can be greater or less than the peak. But you have covered everything. Greater bhi hai, less than bhi hai. What is it? Yes, it has to be either greater than or less than or equal to.
So it depends on the lagging period.
It does not depend. That's what I can tell you. But yeah, I will take this option, greater than peak and less than peak. I don't know what kind of option it is, but still I'm writing for heck of it.
So it can be equal to peak.
It can be equal to peak. चलो एक ऑप्शन और दे दो. None of the above भी देना यार. कुछ तो आंसर सही हो. Equal to peak. Apply your brain here, because you know, if you can crack this, S curves would be easier. If I have to tell, S curves will always haunt you in dreams.
Something like a log graph.
Log graph अब क्या होता है? Log graph
The log curve.
log curve तो कुछ ऐसा भागता होगा है ना?
Yes, sir, but the 0 point is at origin.
Yes, you are getting there, but it is not precisely log. So something like this.
Yes, sir.
See, it's very simple. Up to here, S curve will coincide with this. Is there any doubt? Only one part is present. You are adding nothing. As you pass this, what will happen? This is going to contribute. You agree? Now at this point, this is also starting to increase and this value is already there. right? Just next to peak, you see that value may be slightly higher because here we are at peak and here value has become non-zero. Make sense? So value may be higher than peak. So of course, exponential is gone because the first part you have no idea whether it is exponential or not, right? It could be a linear increase. It could be a linear response reservoir or something. So this part is gone. It can be greater than and less than peak. I have shown that it has to be greater than peak because immediately next point to peak would have some additional component coming from the next curve which is coming into action, right? Because it may happen is that like this peak may happen at 10th hour peak, because you know peak and duration of precipitation, they are not related. A 4-hour precipitation can result in peak at the 10th hour or 20th hour or 30th hour depending upon how your basement or catchment is. Peak is essentially governed by the fact when last drop of water or everything from that catchment is reached to the mouth of the catchment. That's where we see that peak has arrived, right? So it may happen that at peak you may have a substantial portion of another hydrograph adding up. So peak S curve value can be higher than peak. So it will keep on increasing until we reach the end of the base period of first hydrograph. After that, it becomes constant. You can try it in Excel. You can try it in a programming language. You would always see that this behavior is imminent. Because after the first hydrograph is over, second will take over. Right? So all you are doing is that you are saying that ST, the coordinates of S curve at any time t, is nothing but ordinates of S curve lagged by the duration of precipitation plus the new hydrograph, unit hydrograph that you are adding. So this simple mathematical operation yields something called as equilibrium discharge. Can you tell me what would be the value of this equilibrium discharge? Common sense lagao. I have said that this will reach its peak when first hydrograph will come to end. This is all unit hydrographs. What is that value going to be of QS when it hits the peak? What area under hydrograph? What is area under hydrograph?
Excess runoff volume.
Runoff volume, excellent. Runoff volume. Make sense? What is the intensity of precipitation in unit hydrograph of D hours?
One by D.
1 by D. What is its unit?
Time inverse.
Centimeter per hour. Any doubt here? If I multiply it by area of catchment, what I will get?
Volume.
Volume.
Discharge.
Multiplying centimeter per hour by centimeter square, I am going to get volume.
Volume discharge.
I am going to get something in centimeter cube per hour or meter cube per second, whatever. I mean, once I'm in centimeter cube, I can go to any other unit. A by D, centimeters per hour. That has to be the value of my equilibrium discharge. Because you try it once, one hydrograph leaves, second takes over, and second takes over. But once the first part is over, then there is no overlapping, significant overlapping. That's where we get the QS just immediately when the first hydrograph ends. Then you keep on adding infinite hydrographs. Your shape is not going to change, and since it looks like an S, it is called as an S curve. Right? And the governing equation is ST is ST minus D plus UT. All it says is that if we want to derive the unit coordinate, the coordinates of S curve here, what we should do here, we should go d steps backwards, look into the value of S curve and add this value of unit hydrograph where we are standing to it. And that should give us the S curve.